Fortnite have just announced FNCS and there's a lot to cover. We have an entire year of duos again. Unfortunately, there is no Siphon. There will be a major LAN event again, just like we had in Copenhagen with the Global Championship, but they did cut the prize pool by over $2 million. Overall, my thoughts on FNCS before we break down the exact format is mixed. It's pretty good. So I know they cut the prize pool by over $2 million. That's one of the biggest factors people are going to be freaking out about. But I don't think this is because Epic doesn't care about competitive. I don't think it's because they think competitive's dying. I think it's because they realize they can get the insane player base they've been getting for less prize pool. Again, the solo victory cups have proven that. You are getting hundreds of thousands of players on single regions for a chance at $76 after tax. They don't need to put up these massive prize pools to get the viewership and to get the attention. Yes, more money would be great. A lot of my friends are pros. I wish they were bagging out even more. And yes, it probably would help the viewership a little bit, but I think Epic Games has identified they just need to put in a decent amount of money, like over $7 million is still ridiculous amounts of money. They don't have to put in just as much. For example, when I break down the prize pool later, really there's only a few different slots on the major regions on EU and NA that are losing money. It looks like NA's prize pool hasn't really gone down at all. EU first place makes like 30 grand less, but other than that, it's not too different. Some of the smaller regions like OC and especially Brazil have had it cut a fair bit. But for the most part, if they didn't tell you the prize pool was cut, 99.9% of players wouldn't know and wouldn't really be affected. And I do mean that honestly. I know prize pool going down is never a good thing, but after what I just saw with Rocket League, I was really panicking for Fortnite FNCS, but they would really cut it down. And honestly, this doesn't have me too scared. I'm still extremely excited to watch another awesome year of competitive Fortnite, and I don't think this prize pool change is going to affect that. You know, you can try and call me overly positive, but I don't think it's going to ruin competitive. As for some of the other negatives people are very upset about, obviously duos for an entire year is a little bit boring for some people, and I definitely get that. What I was pushing for this year was going to be a solo FNCS to start this season. Just really fun, get everyone in, compete. If you haven't been able to find a duo in time, you want to build up some PR, it would have been really fun to see who the best solo player is in the world, because we haven't seen that for a very long time. Then I wanted a trio FNCS just to change things up, have a bit of fun with it, and then I was hoping they had time to fit 2 duo FNCSs in that could then qualify you to the LAN. I still want a major LAN event, which they're doing, but it looks like they're sticking to duos as the main competitive game mode. They're trying to establish Fortnite as a more conventional esport where there's one game mode and people get used to the storylines and building up in that one game mode. So while I know a lot of people say that duos might be getting a little bit stale, it's getting a little bit boring, it is creating these really cool storylines. We now get to go into this next season with, you know, the conversations around, oh my god, can Mero and Cooper, you know, hold on to their crown? Can they dominate on NA? You get to keep those storylines that have been building for now years. So there are some pros and cons to that. The other major benefit to duos, which if you guys didn't realize, Blast did just sign a 4-year contract with Epic Games. Blast is the company that runs the Fortnite broadcast, which means we are going to get major broadcaster tournaments for the next 4 years. So if we're locked in on duos and now we have the game mode and we have the broadcast, we can keep running these massive major LAN events like they've just announced with Copenhagen. So if switching up the game mode means we don't have a massive LAN event, honestly, I would rather it stick to duos, but then we have that big event. I know Fortnite isn't a conventional esport, and I think there are still ways to switch up the game mode but still have the LAN event, but if it's one or the other, I'm happy they're going this route. Now, unfortunately, we do need a moment of silence for what is definitely the death of Siphon. It's gone. I was predicting this hasn't shocked me whatsoever. I was actually surprised they put Siphon in Copenhagen, but for me, I saw Copenhagen as the last major event we were going to have Siphon in, and it looks like that's the way it's going to be. Siphon, they've made no mention of it. I just don't think it's ever coming back to competitive unless Epic make a full 180. Again, we still don't know why Epic do not want Siphon in the game. Everyone seems to love it. It seems to be better for the game in every way, but at the same time, I've just given up focusing on it. I've given up getting mad about it, because if it's all I focus on, I'm just going to get triggered and I'm never going to be happy. Like I said, if you are only playing Fortnite for Siphon, it's probably about time to quit. But if, like most people, you've gotten used to it, you know Fortnite could be better with it, but it is what it is. That's pretty much where I am. Now, let's actually break down the format of what is going on with FNCS. Now, like I said, there are 3 major events that now qualify you to Copenhagen, the major LAN at the end of the year. There is now no last chance major, which is one of the major ways that people were able to qualify for the global championship. There are also no qualifiers at the global championship like we had last time. Only 50 duos are going. So it looks like those 25 duos that went through last chance major last year, they've scrapped that altogether. The only way to get to the LAN event is through FNCS, and the FNCS format is very different and honestly very confusing. I'll do my best to try to make it make sense. So every single FNCS for the next 3 majors is going to be 5 weeks long. And now I got really excited when I saw this before I realized the fact that there's a bye week in the middle of them. So there's going to be 2 open qualifiers. So 2 qualifying weeks. There's 3 days in each qualifying week. And then we go into an 11+ day bye week. There is just no tournaments, well, no FNCS anyway, for 11 days. And they're doing this every FNCS. Then we have semifinals, which is 3 days long. Then we have grand finals, which is 2 days long, which I'm very happy about. After Copenhagen was only 1 day long in the grand finals, I thought we might be going back to a 1-day grand final format. Turns out we're staying with 2 days, which I'm very, very happy about. That bye week, I'm not overly thrilled about, but hear me out. I think I have a theory for why they're doing this bye week. Cheaters. The cheater epidemic has been really bad in Fortnite. We all know this. It has been a problem recently where the anti-cheat is very, very good. It's catching, 99.99% of cheaters, but there are those cheaters that always slip through, and especially in prize money tournaments, they're incentivized to want to try and cheat and, go under the radar. But with this 11-day break, Epic can now ban all of them before they get to the semifinals, which I think is going to be incredibly important. Obviously, I would rather a different way to do this. I wish Epic just had staff available more during tournaments to just ban them as soon as they're detected, but for whatever reason, Epic likes to play it safe when it comes to banning people. ReseHub made a video recently talking to cheat detectors where he was talking about the fact that they actually like to store the cheaters up and then ban them all in a massive wave so they get rid of more of them, rather than banning 1 or 2 as soon as they're detected, and then people using that cheat stop using it and then they get away with it and find other cheats. That's one of the main theories for why they do it the way they do it, but 11-day bye week, not my favorite addition, but it looks like we're gonna have to get used to it. Okay, now how do you actually get through FNCS from the opens to the semifinals to the grand finals? It's very confusing. Let's just say you have to be Platinum Division to play in FNCS. Not too hard is what it is. Then we are going to have our open qualifiers. So we have 2 weeks of this. Each week is going to have round 1. Platinum and above, there's going to be 10 matches. It's an open style tournament. Then from round 1, you're going to have top 2,000 go on to round 2. 10 matches, pretty normal. Then you're going to have top 1,000 go on to round 3. And then there's 10 matches. Then from that, the top 250 are going to go on to round 4. Now that is the final round. We have no set lobby games in qualifiers anymore, which I've been talking a lot on my stream, if you've heard it, about how I'm getting a little bit over set lobbies. I love set lobbies. They're the most exciting thing in Fortnite, or at least they were. They always felt really amazing. They felt super exciting, and they felt like I was watching the best of the best go at it. Now that there's set lobbies for every single tournament, it just feels like they're not as exciting anymore. I would have liked them in FNCS. That's where I want the set lobby games, but it does mean we're going to have a different style format where it's going to be a little bit more fast-paced, it's going to be a little more exciting, and in that round 4, there's only going to be 5 lobbies going at a time. So each lobby is going to be really, really stacked, the top 250 teams on that region, and it's going to be interesting to see who can stay the most consistent in that format. It's not about having an uncontested drop spot anymore. It's about, playing really, really well against the best of the best, but in more of an open style format. And I think as far as it goes around talking about, oh, they were contested, they weren't contested, as far as getting to semifinals now, just being a tier 1 team with an uncontested drop isn't really going to work anymore. There's 5 different lobbies. You can't just claim the drop. So it'll be very interesting to see how this affects FNCS. Now, this is where it gets confusing. Based on your placements in those 2 open weeks of qualifiers, you will get seeded into semifinals. The best way to think about this is just heat. So top 50 advance to the upper semifinals. The top 50 teams who had the best placements from those 2 weeks go to the upper semifinals. 51st to 250th go to the lower semifinals. And now what we have for the semifinals is kind of just an effect of you play the upper round. It's going to be 5 set lobbies. If you win a game, you go through the grands. If you don't win a game, you drop down to the lower round to verse the other people in the lower round. In the lower round, if you don't do well, you are out of FNCS. You are just gone. You are dropped. So you got to keep playing consistent to then get yourself up into that next upper round to then play 5 matches to win 1 to go through the grands or drop back down the lower round. And then it repeats. Now, the last upper and lower round is a little bit weird. This is where 40 of the teams are going to come from. So there's only 10 teams that are going to get through from all of that, just getting 5 wins. And then it's going to go down to 40 teams getting in through the lower round. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'll have to watch it to give my opinion. If you're confused, don't worry. I still kind of am as well. It is a very confusing format, but I kind of want to see how it plays out first. The fact they're running the upper bracket and the lower bracket at the same time is going to be really weird for viewership. I don't really know what their plan is at FNCS, where they have so much going on with open rounds, and it just doesn't really feel like all eyes are going to be on the top players. It's kind of going to be all spread over the place until we get to the grand finals. And then grand finals is top 50 teams. Day 1, 6 matches. Day 2, 6 matches. But there is a twist. There is now a 1.5 times multiplier on all points on day 2. So they didn't go quite to the double point format we've seen in the past, but if you're playing in the day 1 of the finals, you're going to get, let's say, 60 points for a win. Day 2, you are now going to get 90 points for a win. And this counts for eliminations as well, which is going to be a massive, massive change for grand finals. Other than that, the only other major change that I can see is the fact that there are no forecast and island tower points. It looks like Epic Games has tried their hardest to make sure that people actually get their points for going for these objectives, but they've just given up on it. They still cannot make it that you actually get your points for the island. And when it's 15 points, it's a very, very big deal. People have won and lost tournaments on this. People have qualified and not qualified off this. They finally decided to scrap it all together. If you capture the island or the forecast tower, you will not get points anymore. The last major thing I want to talk about is how many teams from each region qualify through to the massive LAN event at the end of the year. So EU 1st to 2nd from Grand Finals Major 1, and then 1st to 5th from Grand Finals Major 2, and then 1st to 10th from Grand Finals Major 3. I'm not going to do this for every single region, but as you can see, there are going to be more qualifying spots towards the later majors rather than the first ones, which makes sense because obviously you want to get the teams that are closer to the LAN event, who are doing well, who are more relevant, straight through. Because a lot of these teams who qualify in this first major one, if last year's anything to go off, honestly will not be looking that good by the time the LAN event comes around. A lot of them are even going to try to split and reform with different teams. I know it's crazy, but it is how it is. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of qualifying spots for the smaller regions. BR, Asia, Middle East, and OCE only get more than first place going through when you get to the final week. But it looks like OCE having first and second go through. OCE has the least amount of qualifiers. Middle East, Asia, and Brazil are tied. NA still has quite a lot, but EU has a little bit more, which is to be expected based on player base. They have based who qualifies through to the major based on player base. But because there is going to be no qualifiers at the LAN event, any team that qualifies, let's say whoever comes first in OC Major 1, they will be in the grand finals playing for the massive prize pool, which is going to shake things up a lot. We did also get the schedule for the rest of the majors. So we have the first FNCS starting on January 26th. That is when we're going to have the first qualifiers. First FNCS is then going to run through until February 25th. So it looks like FNCS has lasted about a month long now because of the bye week. Then we're going to have our next FNCS kickoff on April 12th, and that's going to finish on May 11th. And then Major 3 is going to kick off June 14th and end July 28th. Now, as a new dad, as someone who has a lot going on in my life right now, it's very cool to see we actually got the FNCS days fully planned out. I can now actually plan things around this, knowing when major tournaments are on. I must say that is a gigantic W from Epic Games, and I'm very, very happy we have a full proper roadmap this year. Also, just it looks like the broadcast is still going to be here. I already talked about that earlier. Blasters re-signed their contract. There is definitely going to be a broadcast, and other than that, it's looking pretty good. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you happy with the FNCS announcement, or are you a little bit sad about the no siphon or less prize pool?